Recording is on.
So, for example, Fatima is going to work on children literature, diaspora, and sorry, not diaspora. We've got trauma and fragmentation, identity fragmentation in children literature. Sarah is working on, Sarah, yes?
Yes, dear. I'm working comparative literature between a French novel and Algerian novel.
Good. So the doctoral degree in Algeria is a program that the student here takes after getting a contest, doctoral contest. Okay, and they have 4 to 5 years to prepare their PhD dissertation. 1 year they have to study. They have to study for 1 year. They have many modules, and the following years, the 3 or 4 remaining years are here devoted for thesis or their dissertation writing. They have also to publish articles and to participate in national and international conferences. So that a whole file plus the dissertation writing, a whole file they have to prepare so that they can have by the end their viva. And of course, when it comes to publication, they have to publish in indexed journals. Otherwise, their publications are not accepted. Yeah. So we have another candidate, Shahinaz. How are you, Shahinaz?
Fine, doctor. Fine. How are you doing, all of you? Assalamu alaikum.
Salamatullah. How are you?
Fine. Alhamdulillah.
So we are going to start with the by 1 minute.
Yes.
Shahinaz, try to turn off your mic.
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Okay, we've got another candidate from Saida University. Nasreen, how are you? Nasreen, are you there? So we are going to start our seminar. Before that, let me introduce Dr. Rishmi to the candidates. So first of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Rishmi from India, who will present a seminar on gender and diaspora in literature. Before we declare open the seminar, we would like to thank Dr. Rishmi for accepting our invitation to share her knowledge on gender and diaspora in literature in particular and literature in general. So let us first introduce who is Dr. Rishmi. So Dr. Rishmi has been working as an assistant professor in the research department of English University of Calcutta, Kerala, India since 2012. She completed undergraduation and post-graduation from the University of Calcutta, awarded her MPhil degree from Kannur University and PhD degree from Calcutta University. Of course, her areas of interest include gender studies, literature theory, transnational studies, Indian English literature, and post-colonialism. She represented various faculty development programs, seminars, webinars as resource person, and invited speaker Catherine to topics related to literature and research ethics. She has published many research articles on various national and international journals and books and presented academic papers in seminars, webinars, and conferences, and she has served as an associate editor of books, acted as external examiner for UG and PG project, Viva, dissertation evaluation question papers, etc., and evaluation of answer scripts of various educational institutions and universities. Once again, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, Dr. Rishmi. The floor is yours.
So thank you, Dr. Nathia. Thank you for such a warm welcome.
Welcome, dear.
Nadia,
Yes, dear.
I hope the slide is visible.
Not yet, dear. Just a white page.
What about now?
Not yet. So I think try to share it for a second time.
Even now it's not working.
Just a white page.
What about now?
Not yet. Do you see the screen? Is it visible for you, ladies? The PowerPoint, please.
No, it's not.
Okay. It is okay now, Rishmi. Try to make it full screen.
Okay. What about now?
Yeah, it's good.
So, good morning to one and all assembled here online. Respected Nathia Gaune, Senior Lecturer at Saida University, PhD students and scholars who are participating for this online virtual seminar. And it is really a prestigious moment for me to address an international audience from Algeria. the place historically linked to several civilizations, empires, and dynasties. And the current status of the country establishes the place as having one of the largest economy in the African continent itself, with leading oil and natural gas reserves, with two wonderful, beautiful languages, Arabic and Tamazight. And I express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Nathia Gaunain, who wholeheartedly invited me to this academic session. I received a warm welcome over the past 1 month through ways of interacting. And thank you, dear Nathia, for giving me this opportunity. And
Welcome,
moving
dear.
on.
In fact,
Okay.
I would like to thank you for accepting my invitation.
So really, it's really what I think that's a proud moment in my life, because for the first time I'm addressing an international audience. I have attended several sessions before, but this is going to be a very precious moment in my life, and this is how I feel right from the invitation.
Welcome, dear.
Okay. Okay.
Looking forward for
And
other occasions, inshallah.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm also looking forward. Yes. So moving on to my presentation, I welcome all the participants once again. And within this framework of gender and diaspora, I have come up with the title Negotiation of Boundaries, Evolving Dimensions of Gender and Diaspora. And through this title, I would like to introduce here the basic concept that gender is being restricted by boundaries. That's what we have been seeing right from the traditional ages onwards. And diaspora by nature, as you all know, is boundary specific. And but in the recent years we have seen a gradual transformation in the very concept of both this gender as well as diaspora, and they have gone through the various stages of acculturation, amalgamation, transcending the social as well as the cultural restrictions and barriers. And first, I will be shedding light on the topic diaspora, and next on gender. And finally, I will be integrating these two aspects with the support of theories and fiction. So, this is a general framework I will be dealing with. So, what you see in this picture? Yes, you can see the several. It's a crowd. It's a crowded place. The place is really crowded, and the people, they are not going in one direction. Of course they are moving in different direction, and this is something, this differences, the saga of differences or the realistic tale of differences is something that we could see in the through the concept of diaspora, the people from different backgrounds, the people speaking different languages, then the people from different cultures and religion. Yes, they all uh, try to unify in one place. The concept, the very concept of homeland itself undergoes a radical change, and they all become settled in a different place. And what is this diaspora, or what are the different names being associated with diaspora? Diaspora, as you all know, simply means migration. Yes, but if we move from our native place to the neighboring state or the regions, we can't call it as of course we can call it as a migration. It's not, but not a permanent migration. So there are different names and different concepts that we often use for the word diaspora. uh, Expatriation, then transnationalism, displacement, migration, and ethnicity. So these are the most recurrent and frequently used terms to substitute diaspora. And what exactly happens in diaspora? Yes, it's a long sojourn away from the home. Yes, as I said earlier, yes, if you make a permanent settlement in away from your home in a native place, yes, this is the instance of diaspora. And what about the return? The return is always deferred and postponed. Yes, the return, you can't expect that all those persons who have settled in another place will make a return on one day. Of course, the return may be occasional or it may be seldom. It can happen sometimes. but the return for most of the population, the migrant population, the return is always deferred. And this diaspora as well as shares a common history, cultural and spiritual belief. Once we become part and parcel of another place, yes, we become, we used to share, even though our history is different, cultural background is different, our beliefs, our religion, everything may be different, but the new place give us a different identity, and our history, our culture, our beliefs, everything becomes intensified in this assimilation process. And similarly, we can see different kinds of stages involved in diaspora, like adoption, absorption, assimilation, and retention. Adoption is considered to be the first stage in the diaspora, where we, as soon as we reach the place, we experience a kind of confusion and chaos whether to adopt the foreign culture or not. And this is a stage of crisis. And gradually, we move on to the stage of absorption, where we absorb the newly assimilated culture or newly acquainted culture. It takes time. It's not an easy process to move from adoption to absorption. And gradually, from absorption, we move on to the further developed stage of diaspora, that is assimilation. We get assimilated with the culture of this place. And finally, is the stage of retention. Yes, retention is a very strong stage in the diaspora, where we never look back to our past. We never feel going back to our native place. It's a stage that makes us as the very strong markers of the foreign identity. So these are the different stages of diaspora. And regarding the history of diaspora, when was this time? When was the first time diaspora came into existence, or the verbal usage of diaspora? It was around 250 BC that the Jewish scholars, while they were translating the Hebrew Bible to Greek language, they used this noun diaspora to describe about the dispersal of Jews. Yes, so this was how this term came into existence. And from afterwards, diaspora began to be used for around 2000 years. And whenever we hear the word diaspora, whenever we make use of this word diaspora, it was exclusively associated with Jewish history. We won't use the word to refer to any other migrant population, just as we used to refer nowadays. And with the Second World War, as you know that most of the countries all over the world, they undergo the colonization, decolonization. And this actually gave an opportunity for the people to migrate among different countries. The forcible migration, there are forcible migration, then voluntary migration of many people belonging to different continents. And what is the present significance of the diaspora, the modern significance rather? Yes, so every year, 20th June is celebrated as World Refugee Day, and even we consider around when we trace back to the history, and when we go back to the factual knowledge, we come to realize that yes, year by year, the number of migrant population is increasing. They are not decreasing, they are increasing because of varied reasons. And now, formally, yes, there was a day being celebrated as the World Refugee Day, and similarly the International Migration Day. So this is, and for United Nations has formally recognized the refugees, and into their classification, around 217 million people were classified as international migrants. And this slide exactly shows the scattering of migrant population around the past 5 decades. The total estimated 281 million people living in a country other than their countries of birth in 2020 was around 128 million, more than in 1990. Yes, the comparison is made between two different years, 1990 and 2020. And along with that, 1970, that year was also brought into comparison. So you can see how radically, or how increasingly the migrant population, there was a shift in the growth of migrant population. And the data source is taken from the migration portal of Western Union. Yes, so migration are of different types. Like it can lead to, because of the different reasons, migrations occur. One such reason is urbanization. As we all know that we are now living in a global economy, the global country, all countries are being connected globally, and as such, the rural areas, it has become the more, in seek of more employment opportunities, people start to move from the rural areas to the urban area. So urbanization is one of the important factors of migration. And next comes the environmental migration. The disasters, the natural disasters may force the people to migrate from their country to another country. And next is the family migration, which we can see as when one of the family members, he or she may get settled in a foreign country, and gradually the entire family will move. This is family migration. Then we have the forced migration at times of war. Then international students migration. Yes, the students are studying. They are actually moving away from their native places in search of better opportunities, in employment opportunities as well as educational opportunities, and they become part of the international places. So international student migration is one major aspect of migration. And return migration, there are less chances for return migration. It may occur due to death or any other critically serious reasons. It may not be always. And these are the slide shows the number of international migrants in the particular year 2019. And I have tried to bring the different countries, continents, and you can see how the migration is on a popular trend, how it is increasing from, for instance, I will take the example of Africa. From the 25 million, it has moved to 38 million. And similarly, in Asia, 80 million to 110 million. And when we trace, that is 2/3 of the international migrants. See, the 14% of the migrants are below 20 years old, and most importantly, 48% are women. So all this shows that, is again, the international migration is increasing on a rapid scale since the year 2000. And features of diaspora. Yes, so diaspora, I have already introduced you the different terms associated with diaspora, the different substitute names. And here in this slide, we can see actually the different features, the characteristic features that symbolize or that characterize diaspora. And one is multiculturalism. Yes, it's an amalgamation. Diaspora is like a melting pot, a pot or a place where you can see the mixing of different cultures. And because of this multiculturalism, it also results in another feature, that is hybridity. People of mixed breed, mixed race, they start to live together, they start to form relationship. Yes, so hybridity, multiculturalism. Then what next? Multilingualism. Yes, we cannot stick on with our own particular language when we move on to the foreign place. We need to study the language of the new country, the new place, which is our second home, and which the second home will very soon be our first home itself, because we have to be adjusted with the situations. And multi-generation. Yes, so our parents, they belong to the second generation, or grandparents, the third, the first generation, first generation. We have the different generations of people moving to the diasporic land, the first generation, second generation, and third generation. And when you examine the generational gap between the people, yes, of course, there is a varying degree of adjustment and assimilation, that the the people belonging to the third generation, they will easily adapt to the foreign culture, but the case is not the same with the first generation. Then another feature is marginalization, alienation, estrangement, and racism. Yes, so racism is another important threat for the people, the diasporic people, because their religion may be different, their race may be different, and there is an instance of racism. This social evil can really become a threat to the migrant population, and as a result, they become alienated and estranged in the new land, and this leads to the gradual alienation and estrangement, triggers the process of marginalization as well. And when we come to the literature, or when we look into the approach, the diasporic approach by different writers, even among the writers, we can see that there are two sets of writers: traditionalist writers and assimilationist writers. The traditional writers, they always try to maintain ties with their motherland. They live in the nostalgia of the past memories. So their identity will always be the same even after the migration, because they maintain strong ties with their homeland. Then, whereas the assimilationist writers, they easily undergo the process of acculturation and adaptation to the whole society. So, most of the contemporary diasporic writers, they belong to the assimilationistic tradition rather than the traditionalist tradition. And the nature of diasporic writings, we can see that the diasporic writings are further characterized by the cultural displacement from their homelands. Then the intensity of conflict, the conflict is something that being continuously experienced by the immigrant population. And when we look into these diasporic writings, we can connect the diaspora, the literature of the diaspora, with various theoretical, psychoanalytical, and racial models, paradigms. Yes, it's possible. Several theories have been originated in supporting the field of diaspora, and you can link this theory to the field of psychoanalysis and race theory as well. And another, this it has become a separate branch of literature, just like gender studies, women's studies. We have a separate branch of literature called the diaspora studies, and all those writers are actually trying to what represent the plight of the diasporic citizens. So the diasporic writings is a visible stream of writing in the 21st century. And memory and intertextuality are the another characteristic tenet of the diasporic writings. Most of the writers, they make use of this device, memory, because without memory they cannot link their homeland with the host land. And similarly, intertextuality is just like interdisciplinary or a multidisciplinary aspect. Intertextuality, connecting a literary text with another literary text or another realm. Yes, so with history or with religion or with philosophy, so such things or such explorations are possible in the context of diasporic writings. And now, moving on to the theories of diaspora, we have a series of writers belonging to different nationalities who have contributed to the emerging field of diaspora. And one such prominent writer, a theoretician, is Robin Cohen, and his famous work is Global Diaspora. In this book, Global Diaspora, Robin Cohen has identified four different phases for the diaspora. The first one is the phase that spans between 1960s to 1970s. And during this phase, yes, the migrant population were treated as mere victims, and they were victimized by the oppressors, as we can see in the relation between the oppressor and the oppressed. Earlier, in the form of slavery or in the form of indentured laborers, yes, the persons were taken from their native place to these foreign countries in the name of migration. And victimhood is the first stage, is the historical moment in the theory of diaspora. And coming to the second stage, that is 1980s, is the apart from merely victimizing the the diasporic population. Yes, they have been given different designations, the different terms. Their status has been improved quite a lot. They have been given the titles like expatriates, expellees, refugees, alien residents, immigrant, ethnic, and racial minorities. And when we reach mid 1990s, yes, the homeland becomes a very crucial metaphor for the theories of diaspora. Ethnic as well as the religious community began to the forefront. And the last phase is the phase of consolidation, where Robin Cohen clearly states that, yes, there is no scope for further victimization of the diasporic population. It is a phase of consolidation, integration, unification, where the global population will definitely accept the diasporic citizens as one among them. And this stage is said to be the phase of consolidation. And it is believed that right now we are in the stage of consolidation. The rapid increase in the population, the migrant population, is also an evidence, a testimony to the phase of consolidation. And next important writer, theoretician that I would like to introduce is Arjun Appadure. Through his book Modernity at Large, he identified different kinds of types of diaspora. Diaspora of hope is a diaspora of terror and diaspora of despair. For some migrant population, diaspora definitely triggers within them a kind of hope, and with this hope they move to the foreign place, they get assimilated, and for them it always creates fresh memories or fresh experiences. But for them, diaspora is, for some other, diaspora becomes the fact of terror. And here we have to think about the one of the key feature of diaspora. We have to connect racism over here because of our ethnic identity, because of our religion, because of our race. Is sometimes the migrant population will be mistakenly they will be classified as terrorists, and they will need to face the consequences of such an attitude. So that there lies the significance of diaspora of terror. And for some, diaspora becomes the reality of despair, the days of despair and sadness, not of hope, not of happiness, but of despair. So people, their experiences may vary from hope to terror or terror to despair, and among many other aspects. And here also we'll be looking into the different theoreticians of diaspora, and one among them is the Paul Gilroy. The theoretician's name is Paul Gilroy, and he is famous for his work Black Atlantic. And through this work, he categorizes the culture of a person not as an Asian or African or European or anything else. Rather, he says that, yes, he tries to categorize culture as a Black Atlantic culture. Actually, he means here the dispersal of Africans itself, the migration of Africans, the migration, the migrant population belonging to the African race as Black Atlantic. Again, this concept transcends the traditional concept, or it moves beyond the traditional categorization of diaspora. And next we have Chevellin in his work Beyond Gilroy's Black Atlantic. He brings to the forefront two important aspects of diaspora. One is hybrid diaspora. What is hybrid diaspora? Hybridity is a feature of diaspora. Yes, so it is not a diaspora is no longer a monolithic entity. It is all about the hybridity, the mixing of different cultures, different languages, and this results in a hybrid diaspora. And rhizome is another significant metaphor used by Chevellin. And like Chevellin, we have two more writers, like yes. Uh, Deleuze and Guattari, yes, both these writers, they make use of rhizome as a metaphor. As you know, rhizome is an image. It's a linear, multiple, spread out, without boundaries, margins, or limits. And similarly, rhizomatic. What is rhizomatic diaspora? Is it also denies the single point of origin. It explores the complicated or the complex or the intricate, interconnected migration pattern that is the feature of the present century. So rhizome becomes a very powerful metaphor in the context of diaspora. Then Stuart Hall in Cultural Identities and Diaspora, he observes that culture is constantly producing and reproducing through transformation and difference. So culture has a close linkage with diaspora, and that is what Stuart Hall is asserting in this work. And when we move on to Homi K. Baba, through his work Nation and Narration, yes, he also says that diaspora are strong markers of shifting boundaries. Yes, the boundaries may keep on changing in the realm of diaspora. They are the positive markers, and but as we know that the nations are divided in the name of borders and boundaries, but diaspora transcends those borders and boundaries and create a borderless or create a group of population who has come far away from these borders and boundaries, and together they create a world of themselves. So these are some of the theoretical reflections of diaspora, and it is in this context I'm going to discuss about the contribution of women writers. It, when did or how did women diaspora originated? Yes, so earlier it was the realm of the male domain to reveal the personal struggles of women, but gradually there occurred a shift in depicting these stereotype gender roles to the strong women. Women themselves come to the forefront, and they started shedding their own experiences, real life experiences, and this becomes the platform for them to have the new ways of expression. And the transnational space, we can call the space as a transnational space, and this space provide women with to explore themselves, and the black as well as the female diaspora, yes, they began to be to get enriched with the narratives of migration, when new and new women writers emerged in started to write about diaspora, and they bring out the atmosphere of the host land, the residual memories of the homeland, in patriarchal hegemony. And they discussed and they experimented with several such factors, and gender becomes very critical to the understanding of migration. And we have a new constellation, a new group of writers emerging in the diasporic field. Let me introduce some of the prominent fiction relevant to the field of diaspora, and one is Gloria Naylor. I hope that this writer is very well familiar to you. She is an African American writer, an Afro American writer, and her work is Mama Day. It's a very nice work that each one of you, if not at all, you have gone through this work. This work was written somewhere in 1989. It's a wonderful work where you can see magical realism, then the women liberation is the wonderful healing power of the herbs, through which how the central character Mamade is trying to hold the universe, the entire universe. And next we have the work title What We All Long For. This is an Afro-Canadian work written by Diane Brandt, where the characters are from different ethnic backgrounds, from Vietnam, from Jamaica, from the from Trinidad, and so all these migrants they they become friends, they get unified, and Canada becomes a multicultural land where they can come to they become friends, they come to know more about each other. And this work, in short, ponders upon the longings and yearnings of diasporic population. It's also a must to read work. It was published somewhere in 2005. And the next two works are from the Indian background, Chitra Divakaruni and Anitha Rao Badami. Chitra Divakaruni is an Indo-American writer. She is now settled in America, and her Queen of Dreams, this work also explores the identity crisis of a woman rooted from India, and is forced to stay in America. So the clash between the Indian culture and the American culture, and how gradually she becomes the part of American culture. All such things are clearly reflected in Queen of Dreams. And the hero's walk shows the contrast between Canadian culture and the Indian culture. Yes, so so in all these works, in one way or the other, throws light upon the various diasporic dilemma, the fictional conflicts, the realistic conflicts of the characters. And I must say that diaspora, um, examining in the hybrid nature of diaspora, it is interconnected with various literary theories. The scope of intertextuality is much significant in the realm of diaspora. We can connect diaspora with feminism. We can similarly post-colonialism as well as queer studies. So there are many works. Even when you go through the works relevant to the diaspora, you can see the themes connected with feminism, post-colonialism, and queer studies. And now it's time for me to introduce the concept of gender. Yes, so the dimensions of gender, it was around 1970s, gender as a concept evolved after the second wave of feminism. And the various social stratifiers embedded within the gender are caste, class, family, and group. And the discourse called the gender studies began to examine the power relations that operate within the gender. The women's studies, there was a slight difference between women's studies and gender studies. Women's studies, its pivotal concern is to study the issues of women alone, whereas gender studies not only studies about women but also about the LGBTIQ, then the different shades of gender, the first gender, second gender, and the third gender. So everything concerning the genders, everything concerning the women and the other genders, everything we can see in the gender studies. Then gender roles, yes, these roles, as we all know that gender is a social construct as opposed to the biological construct, and similarly gender roles are also defined by behavior, stereotypes, ideologies, yes, beliefs and attitudes. Yes, our society has clearly stratified that these the gender roles has is this for male and female must follow these gender roles. And yes, what do we see in all together here? Yes, there is a kind of binary thinking working over here. In this binary thinking is of hierarchical in nature. The one term is always privileging the other term, as we must see in the theory of deconstruction as well. So deconstruction itself deconstructs the theory of binary opposition and binary thinking. So this is very relevant in the field of gender studies as well. It's high time that we started to negate this kind of binary thinking. And let me introduce some of the major theoreticians to the field of gender. One is Judith Lorber, an American sociologist. So, in the book Social Construction of Gender, Lorber clearly states that gender is an organizing principle that goes beyond the reproductive differences. So, it's not something that reproduction or the ability to give birth, that such biological traits, it doesn't confirm the framework of gender. Gender goes beyond the reproductive differences. There is no scope for the biological differences, according to Judith Lorber. Then Toril Moy, the Norwegian feminist and theoretician, Herese, what is a woman, clearly brings out the fact that gender is a constantly evolving concept. It's a fluid concept. It is not at all static. It's dynamic and ever flowing. And Judith Butler, I think that Judith Butler, the name is very familiar to you, an American philosopher and gender theorist. Through the book Gender Trouble, brings out that sex, gender, and sexuality are performances. Yes, so the word performance is very critical in the theory of Judith Butler. She says that everything, yes, even the word gender or the gender roles, gender ideologies, everything is conditioned and internalized to some extent that we don't have freedom to act in our own way. So she questioned the generalization about men and women, and she tried to bring out the dichotomy that exists between men and women. And the next important theoretician is Anne Oakley, a British sociologist and feminist. So through the book Sex, Gender and Society, she observed gender as matter, as a product of cultural and social classification into masculine and feminine. So these are the different theoretical approaches, and feminism as a literary theory. So with in the gender, when we talk about gender, actually we cannot avoid the framework of feminism, as feminism is a politicized discourse. You know that there is a strong power game, a power play that exists within the literary movement called feminism, and through feminism, the women writers, they try to bring out the oppression, exploitation, and marginalization. The subjectivity is given prime importance in feminism, and the objectivity, generalization part is negated. And it's believed that feminism helps women to read the text closely and to read against the grain. It's not merely blindly imitating the text or reading the text or what is written in the text, but to take what is not to take what for granted, but to bring out the best or to bring out what is right. And the sexual politics of the world inside as well as outside the text are also part of the political critique and action in feminist literary theories. And here I will be introducing an Italian-Australian feminist, Rosie Braidotti, who speaks of feminist reader as a nomadic subject wandering to find the sustenance. Yes, so the feminist literary reader is a very a strong reader, is a strong personality who tries to assert her identity at any cost. And let me introduce some gender theoreticians. Mary Wollstonecraft, through her book, A Vindication of Rights of Women, she rejected the established view that women are weaker to men. Yes, this is considered to be the foundational text of gender studies, the earlier text of feminism, the first wave feminism. And next comes Virginia Woolf, through A Room of One's Own, where she clearly demarcates the physical space as well as the monetary relevance in a woman's life. So then coming on to Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex. Yes, so one is not born but rather becomes a woman. This is a oft-repeated quote that we used to learn during our undergraduation and post-graduation, and even in the present days of teaching. I used to quote this word taken from Simone de Beauvoir, that one is not born but rather becomes a woman. Woman is treated as second sex. So she was also against the conditioning, the propagation of patriarchy, where women is often seen as inferior or the other. And then Elaine Showalter is the next important theoretician. In a literature of their own, she describes woman author as the producer of the text and meanings to replace the male critical theory. So it is the need of the day, the need of the time, that women should come forward and they should start producing their literature. So women author is not only the producer of text, but she can even rewrite the history. And it is in this context that we can see many rereadings of the literary text. Then Kate Millett. Kate Millett's Sexual Politics examines the power-structured relationships that govern the women, and in her opinion as well, the power is even there is an operation of power as well as politics, in whether it be the private sphere of women or the public sphere. So she criticizes this power game through her work Sexual Politics. And again, in this context, I would like to interconnect the gender and diaspora to the theory of intersectionality. So it's a feminist theory developed by Black feminist scholar Kimberly Crenshaw in the year 1989, and it is based on the premise that this theory is applicable only to the persons belonging to multiple identities. As we know that these persons with multiple identities, they experience oppression as well as privilege at the same time. It's actually an approach of inclusion. If so in the multiple identities, or the exclusion, the people with multiple identities, they often experience exclusion in the society. And here comes the significance of this theory of intersectionality, because intersectionality, the theory, is all about inclusion. They try to bring the people belonging to different race, class, gender, and ethnicity together. They try to treat them under a single umbrella. So intersectionality is a very promising theory in the field of gender studies as well as feminism. Yes, so this book has very significance to the title of my presentation, that is Border, Negotiating Border. And then our author is Gloria Anzaldúa, and this is the promising work written by Gloria Anzaldúa, Borderlands, La Frontera. She's a Latin American writer, and she introduced a concept called mestiza through her theoretical ramifications. And who is actually a mestiza? A mestiza is a term that can be used to refer to an ethnic racial category that emerged from the mixing of Europeans and the indigenous people of America as a result of colonialism. But nowadays, or Anzaldúa, she transcends the term of mestiza to the different levels and different connotations. For her, the new mestizas are the people who inhabit multiple worlds because of their gender, sexuality, color, class, personality, and spiritual beliefs. So, in this context, we can call the diasporic persons the women who migrate from there from to different places. We can call them as new mestizas. Then here as well, we can find an intersectionality of the different theories that contribute to the theory of mestiza: feminism, queer theory, cultural theory, all interconnect each other and together results in the robust theory of mestiza. And this is Anzaldúa, Gloria Anzaldúa. So how can we locate Anzaldúa? She was born as a mestiza because her parents are of mixed racial heritage. The one is Spanish and the other is an American. So she situates herself between the Spanish or Mexican and American culture, and she identifies herself as a mestiza, Chicana, feminist, and lesbian. She was grown up on the Texas-Mexican border, and because of her real life experiences or in between space, she tries to portray the social and cultural marginalization. And this was the inspiring or instigating factor behind coming up with this book titled Borderlands. And through these experiences, she is actually trying to theorize the experiences of all those who live in the margins. So we can connect her as a diasporic writer, as a feminist writer, as a lesbian writer, and as a Chicana writer. And some of the terms used by Anzaldúa, the central terms that leads to the mestiza consciousness. And one is mestizaje. Mestizaje means the state of being beyond the binary. Yes, so a woman living on the border between different countries and cultures. Yes, so such a woman can be termed as undergoing the stage of mestizaje. And next is Nepanthleras. Nepanthleras Yes, simply speaking, we can call it as a mediator, one who is able to control two different worlds, or one who can link and interconnect or bridge between two different worlds through negotiations or among the multiple worlds. And next is the borderlands. So borderlands actually refers to not only the geographical or the political borderlands, but also the psychological borderlands, the sexual or the spiritual borderlands. And mestiza can be fit well into this space. And the last one is called league state. It's a psychological conflicts that leads to self-deficiency, cultural confusion, and shame. So, according to Anzaldúa, a mestiza, the stage of mestiza is not a comfortable stage, and it may take several years for a woman to reach the stage of mestiza. She has to undergo through these different stages. Mestizaje, she has to be an epandlara or a mediator. Then she has to live in the psychological borderlands. She has to transcend the very word of borderlands, and her painful negotiation with the reality. Sorry. And the self division and the cultural confusion pushes her to the state called the Catholic state. And methodology of mestiza, yes, they have to follow a mestiza to survive in this world. Is they need to come up with a very good strategy for survival. Mestiza needs to disrupt, or they need to break the borders, both physical and psychological. And mestiza is a metaphor or symbiosis of different cultures in the form of coalition building across gender, race, and sexuality. And another important aspect that we can see here is the breaking of subject as well as the object duality. And finally, mestiza creates a new identity. Maybe the methodology or the ways adopted to create the new identity may be revolutionary, but the resultant identity is a different identity from her former identity. And the ways are very challenging, adventurous, but finally, it is believed, or the theory of Anzaldúa clearly states that mestiza is able to create a change in the life of each and every woman. Once a woman becomes the mestiza, she can actually guide the other women to become mestizas. And mestiza consciousness is now considered a very important. The mestiza, the very concept mestiza as well as mestiza consciousness are two significant critical and literary terms in the field of diaspora theory, or the cultural theory, multiculturalism. And this consciousness had actually led to the different theoretical contributions like the borderlands theory, then multicultural paradigm, theory of inclusion. So in the context of intertextuality, I mentioned about the theory of inclusion. So mestiza theory is also a theory of inclusion. And finally, it contributes to a new kind of resistance. The dualistic thinking or the binary thinking is uprooted from our minds, uprooted from the minds of the individuals, and instead a collective consciousness is built. And here lies the significance of mestiza consciousness. And the different stages, evolving stages of mestiza. And mestiza heals our lives, cultures, languages, and thoughts. Mestiza evolves as supreme crosses of culture with self-respect. Then the mestiza, the person who crosses culture, race, language, religion, and even the borders becomes a true mestiza, and who survives in the world is actually who he lives with the mestiza consciousness. And let me quote a word from Anzaldua's Borderlands. Because I, a mestiza, continually walk out of one culture, I am in all cultures at the same time. Taken from Borderlands. Yes, she admits herself to be a mestiza, and she says that she actually do not belong to one culture. She is forced to move from her Spanish culture to the American culture. She studied in America. She faced this linguistic terrorism, linguistic discrimination, racial discrimination in the land of America, but she tried her level best to survive in the land of America. She began to establish her identity as a writer, in America itself. So she's a true mestiza, and her theory, I'm quite sure that it will be an eye opener to each one of us to survive the existing odds and difficulties. And I'm moving on to the conclusion. And towards the conclusion, I must say that race and sexual subordination are reinforcing mutually, and women are marginalized either by their race or by their gender. And the intersectional theory is very significant theory that disrupts the assumption that identities are fixed and explores its fluid aspects. Gender and diaspora theories are vehicles for raising consciousness of the oppressed groups. And literature, after all, it is within the framework of literature that we connect these gender theories and diaspora theories. So literature becomes the powerful pieces of diagnosis and the cure for social evils as well as the hope for social transformation. It becomes a political document, site for someone to voice against the multicultural women oppression. So these are my views. From my limited knowledge, I have shared the different aspects of gender, diaspora, and some of the theoreticians, some of the writers, and I think that I have tried a little bit to satisfy you in your expected ways. That's all about my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rishmi, for your insightful presentation, through which we, in fact, have traveled to explore the concept of diaspora in literature, and then bridging here the gap to gender studies. Thank you very much indeed for the insightful and valuable information you have provided and devoted as far as the two concepts are concerned. Endless thanks indeed. So now I'll move on to our candidates if they have any questions. Ideas? Iman? No, dear, we can't hear you. I think that you have a problem with your mic. Sarah? Shahnia?
Hello,
Yes,
can you hear
Sarah?
me,
Yes,
Dr. Guna?
yes, Sarah? Yes, Sarah?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question concerning diaspora. First of all, thank you, Dr. Rashmi, for your insightful presentation. Well, concerning diaspora, normally it is related much more to migrant people who maybe because of wars they were obliged to left their or to leave their their countries. But can we say also we can call people who were victims of colonial colonialism? Are they even if they are in their countries? We can we say they are
Yes, Sarah?
diaspora?
Um, well,
Can you hear me?
yeah. I actually understood your question in its best way. Yes, I mentioned about the different types of migration. Under the different types of migration, I told about the different reasons which pressurize the people to become or to gain the identity of diaspora. So during the period of, it was during the period of colonialism that the colonial masters, they began to occupy the different territories of the globe, and I think that almost all the continents were being colonized, and it was during such a regime that the need of the migrant population becomes very urgent, either to carry out their work, the labor at the plantations, so to, or to take them as indentured laborers, or they need people to work for them, the colonial masters. So they began to direct these people from different countries, especially from the developing countries or the underdeveloped countries. They were being taken abroad, as part of their political purpose, and they were actually, these persons, they were not given any particular status, but they unknowingly, they all become the part and parcel of diaspora. And for them, I must say that if you remember Arjuna Appadurei's book, Modernity at Large, where he has clearly stated the different types of diasporas. For them, diaspora is not one of hope, but of despair. So they suffered a lot in the hands of these colonial masters, even though there was a change or shift in their dignity, in their status, from the people of a particular country to the diasporic population. So that was the sad state of diaspora. Diaspora may not always bring out the fortunes or give you the golden opportunities. For some, it is really going to change or going to create a radical transformation by giving you more wealth, giving you more opportunities, giving you more space. If you are really good at your language, or if you are good at assimilation rather. But for the majority of people, the diasporic population, this is not going to be a good experience. They do not have much very a glorifying moments to think or relish about these experiences.
Thank you. Yes, Iman, do you have a question? Fatima? Yes, Iman?
Doctor?
Yes, doctor. I just want to thank doctor for her insightful presentation. I had a similar question to that of Sarah. I was going to ask about the mental diaspora in this age. Since we're not fully decolonized as a whole nation, and there's still neocolonialism, and there's still an actual one in certain parts of the world, like Palestine and stuff. So people are still suffering from this diaspora. Can we still compare it to the same way as it appears in the post-colonial studies, or it is more dangerous because it's hidden and it is unvoiced?
Okay. Yes, even now is the case of the Palestinians and the case of the Jews, who are being victimized, and that is why for around 2000 years the term diaspora was strictly used to depict the victimization of Jews in the hands of the Germans, as well as the other imperial rulers. And even now, the situation is going on. The country, all countries may not welcome the migrant population, and if we are not able to live in our own home, actually I'm reminded of a poem written by Warson Shire, which is titled as Home Itself. We will not leave home unless home becomes the mouth of a shark. she has clearly stated this line, and this is how the poem begins. The stanza of each line begins with this statement: "We will not leave home unless home becomes the mouth of a shark." Yes, so the same thing that I need to add to it, that yes, the situation of the Palestinians and the situation of the Jews, yes, both are in one way similar. Because of their race, the particular race, they are not able to live in peacefully in a country. The racial superiority is something that demarcates us, like religion, or the class system, or in India we have this caste system. It's another very social evil that really distinguishes between the people. At the time of birth, we have been identified with a particular race, religion, then caste, and these are actually the social indicators, again constructed by the society. We The individual do not have any choice in revising this identity, or because these are the labels being attached at the time of birth of a person, and we carry with these bondages. And as we grow up, even with the education, the exposure to the education or civilization, but still we are very narrow in terms of the our prejudices. We are not even, at least some of us, not all, we are still reluctant to accept the people belonging to other race and other religion to the fullest extent. And only if everyone started to accommodate and include the others without excluding, we will be able to live happily, and we will be able to migrate to, or the migrant population will get a deserved dignity in the new place.
Thank you, dear.
That's all.
Thank you.
Yes, any other question? Yes, Lena?
In fact, I don't have a question, but I just want to point out on something as long as gender studies are concerned. One must reflect at least on the word gender itself, since today its interpretation is taken another divergence and dimensions, which are also, I believe, that they are too imposed and forced in its way, like the old vulgar machismo imposed on women. Trying to deny nature and to reshape a biological theory on a baseless ground is also another kind of imposition of cultural and societal whims and a limitation of freedom. The change of the world today is awful, and this change that is alleged as freedom is at the cost of someone else's freedom, which is not just and fair. And this attempt to change nature is a fight against nature. And I believe that if we win it, we're gonna lose. And trying to change a human gender into six, seven, or plethora of gender is just an oppression to humanity, which will only result chaos and disorder. And if a human being, like today, they no longer know what to choose because they are being offered a hybrid society where you lose your consciousness and you absorb everything so that you do not rebel. And this is, of course, I see it as a political manipulation because some regimes intentionally try to create chaos and anarchy. There is today anarchy in gender, anarchy in history, anarchy in culture. And when no one can control it, they do. And this is dictatorship. They want a man to become feminine, to stop being a man of action and duties. And they want a woman to replace man, to hold the burden of life that can only be carried with man and woman along with harmony. That's what I think.
Thank you, Lena. In fact, indeed, I'm sharing with you the same view. What about you, Rishmi?
Okay, I also agree with the same thing the participant has expressed. Yes, anarchy exists in different realms, whether it be in gender or in theory. The theoretical implications have their own limitations. When we start to live in the real society, yes, it's not possible to apply the theory. That's what I feel. Literature is to some extent confined to the theoretical space. Even though literature exposes the real life moments, it copies the real life happenings in the society, in the nation, but still, to some extent, we have to what we have to understand the limitations or the restrictions imposed upon the literature by the society. If the writer begins to write in the truest spirit or the truest sense, yes, something that I feel in our place is that he or she will need to face a heap of controversies, and even the personal attack. If so, does a writer really experience any kind of freedom? This is something. This highlight the highlight of today's discussion. I think that even though the writers, they writing is considered to be the expression of their minds, but still, even in the form of gender studies or in the contributions of the taking into account the contributions of the diasporic writers, but still, we are actually being limited by the boundaries that are created around us by the society. In that sense, the writers, they need to adhere to the rules of the society. Rules are something that matters, and again, it won't bother no, the privileged people. Yes, we could see the binary opposition operating within our family, our society, our community, our nation, and even in the diasporic space as well. If we are not able to exercise the complete liberty in our own nation, what could be the fate of the migrant population when they are forced to live in another country with another government, the policies, the political atmosphere? So these things have to be changed. Literature, I don't know how far literature, but still literature is a consciously literature. The theoreticians and writers, they are trying to bring out these differences. They are trying to demarcate these narrow the shades of differences, making them visible to the public, to the readers, and hopefully the things may change in the future.
Thank you indeed. So I have here a comment by Yusra saying that asking you to go back to the point where you have mentioned the transnational space in women's writing and its relationship with diaspora.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this transnational space is the space that when a woman moves beyond the space of her nation, yes, that is something that literally happens in diaspora. It becomes so diaspora is a transnational realm or a transnational space, and for the women writers, unlike the male writers, the women's writing, when you trace the history of women's writing in writing from whichever the countries or whichever continent, you can we could see the names of very few women writers emerging in the literary scene. And when it comes to the diaspora, again, there was a time when the male writers dominated the entire realm of diaspora, and it was only very recently, during 1960s and or 19 early part of the 20th century, that we could see women coming up with or the women began to migrate to these foreign countries. And it's only after migration that they have the first-hand experiences of the diasporic land, the alienated experiences, the experiences of estrangement. So gradually they started to carve out the space called the transnational space, where they could communicate with the members of the host land. They could project the memories and the nostalgia of their home culture. They started to share these experiences with the persons of the host culture, and it is in this way they're actually considered to be the ambassadors or the carriers of culture, their native culture, to the foreign places, either through marriage or through the seeking job opportunities, or by the way of studies, international studies, the locations. They try to spread the culture of their own land with the residents of the new place.
Thank you, Dr. Rishmi. Another question, I think, by Iman. She links sovereign theory of diaspora. I think that. Can you explain more your question, Iman?
I can read out the question. So
Yeah,
I will be answering as well. So yes, these are the very there are stable categories. Some are, yes. So the ideas of fluidity, movement, root, and destabilization of homogenizing boundaries. I have whether these factors have an impact on identity.
yeah.
Yes, definitely. These factors, boundaries, when we try to homogenize the boundaries, yes, definitely, or destabilization. So all these are the positive impacts on the diaspora, the movement from one's native place to another, the roots. When I use the word roots, yes, I am reminded of the another word, roots, as well as routes. Both these words have very relevance in the context of multiculturalism, roots and roots. And similarly, the boundaries, when we are about to homogenize these boundaries or borders. So boundaries and borders are something that restricts our identity. So if we are going to break these boundaries, we are going to transcend these boundaries in the name of diaspora, in the name of gender emancipation. Definitely it is going to influence our identity. We will be very bold and be confident in asserting our identity. We can claim that we have reached a stage where we have survived all the obstacles and challenges, and we have moved to a stage of homogenization. These are all the positive impacts on the identity of an individual. And no there is no doubt about expanding the concept of diaspora through homogenizing boundaries. Hope my answer is satisfactory, man.
Yes, Iman. I think
Doctor?
that she has a problem, facing a problem with her mic. Yes, Shahinaz.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, I'd like to thank Dr. Reshmi for the very interesting and important presentation, reminding us about the basic concepts, mainly amalgamation, displacement, expatriation, and ethnicity, tracing the roots of diaspora to a Hebrew Bible. And my question will be on I have actually two questions. The first one concerning the assimilated writers. Uh, uh, don't you think, Doctor, or does it involve or induce awareness about the danger of assimilation in the way of means adopting a new culture at the expense of the native or the original one, if I may, and and what are the reasons triggering the desire to assimilate? Is it, in other ways, is it a protective strategy, or are they adopting and adapting to the new culture and to the new values? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The one thing that I understood about your question, the overall thing is that, yes, what is the role of assimilation in the context of diaspora? Yes, I could say that assimilation, yes, it happens not in the initial stage, as we have seen that adoption of a new culture is the first stage of diaspora, followed by assimilation. And even when it comes to adoption of a new culture, the reasons may be varied. For instance, if even if I'm not much interested in adopting the culture, there is again, I am not even provided with the second choice that I can return back to my native place. My native place won't be the same again, or because of certain inhibitions I cannot go back, I cannot make a return back to my native place. And I am really what in a moment of conflict, in a moment experiencing much intensity of conflict and chaos, that I cannot make a return back. So in that case, there is only one option or choice left before me, and that is to adopt the new culture. And once I start adopting the new culture, then comes the question of assimilation, whether I should go to the second stage, or the more intense the stage of falling in love with this new land, or whether I should make again a return. So in most cases people never make a return again, because they are actually binded by this culture. By this time they might have learned the language, they might have tried to imitate the culture of the new place. So it becomes a very crucial moment in their life, that assimilation is the only way to escape out of the upcoming cultural barriers or dilemmas. They started to dress using the dress imitating the host land, the people of the host land. They try to speak, try to hide their own accent, and they try to learn the new language of the place. They try to adapt with the food, as well as the cultural patterns. They started to forget about their native culture, traditions, and customs. And unknowingly, they try to assimilate with the new culture. And once they achieve this stage of assimilation, yes, it was a really surpriseful moment in their lives, that how come they gathered this kind of knowledge and or this kind of experience. So they never look back. They try to survive in the new land with the new hopes and dreams. Yes.
Yes,
Yes, Shahinaz?
thank you, doctor. But yes, thank you for enlightening me. But don't you think that this assimilation, if it is, how to say, does it induce the danger of losing their native values, or at the expense of their original native culture?
Yes, of course. There is a severe critical expense involved. That is, forgetting our native culture is something that which we don't like it actually, because right from our childhood, our parents and grandparents, they used to tell us about our culture, religion, language. So we develop a kind of respect, and once we move away from our parents and grandparents to this foreign land or the host land, yes, I think that for the initial few days, they will be, or initial few years or few months or years, they will be living with the burden of this their homeland. But gradually they become more practical. So this assimilation has something to do with the practicality of the situation as well, because to cope up with this present situation, they are not living in their native place, they are in a new land. So they do not want to create much trouble to the people of the host land. So but at the same time, can they do justice to their native culture? So this is a big dilemma, and this dilemma or this internal
Yes.
conflict is
Mm.
another crucial moment in the life of a diaspora. So diasporic citizen. So diasporic citizen, their lives are not actually what very promising one. They have to undergo a lot of turmoils, but I'm not sure that whether all such persons share their intimate thoughts or the reality of the host land to the no, to the dear and the near one. They are in all ways sacrificing a lot for
Yeah.
their family, for their culture, for their land. They are considered to be the true survivors of the modern century.
Yes.
Shahnaz.
Yes. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you very much indeed, Rishmi. I think there is another question with Iman. She's talking about the concept of cultural transplantation and diaspora in reforming and reforming one's identity, deforming and reforming one's identity.
Okay, so the cultural transplantation by the term is it's clearly reflected that is transplanting oneself from the a particular culture to the another culture. So just like changing our dress or changing our food patterns, culture cannot be actually transplanted all of a sudden. It takes time to adjust and assimilate and accommodate with the culture. But once we get accommodated with the new culture, it is very difficult to change. That is what I feel. So all this diasporic population, they initially they have some kind of aversion towards this cultural transplantation, even though they are culturally uprooted from their native culture, native place to this host land. They have a sense of aversion towards the host culture, and they still cling on to their home culture in the way of nostalgia, memories, by way of communication. Earlier, it was in the form of letters, but now in the form of telephonic conversations, then emails, then social media. But still, they experience themselves at lows when at least when they come to know that yes, today, for instance, giving you an example, is maybe the new land never makes the person to remember about his festival or about his any religious occasion, but suddenly he has been reminded about these, maybe through a phone call or through reading somewhere. Yes, he suddenly feels that he's completely at loss, but he cannot express it in another way. He cannot dress in his usual pattern, because he will become a point of difference, or he among the homogeneous population living over there. He never wants to portray himself as of different identity of a different culture. So in most cases, he tries to assimilate with the new culture by just forgetting, even if he has a deep cultural pang within, cultural yearning and longing within his mind. He tries to transplant himself with the other culture, from the native culture, and he tries to mingle with the new culture. And in this way, his identity definitely gets becomes a new one. It goes constantly undergoes changes, modifications. It reforms and deforms. And yes, finally, again, here also I have to say, I have to connect with the theoretical concept of mestiza. Yes, the stage of mestiza is not a very what a smooth one. It involves this what the intensity of conflict, then a conflict state. So likewise, it changes the overall identity of the person as well.
Thank you very much, Rishmi. Any other questions, ladies, before we move? Ladies? Sarah? Yusra? So go back, please. To what, Iman?
Okay, rhizome. A
Yeah.
rhizome is yes, it's a powerful metaphor used in the context of diaspora to show that again. So basically, rhizome refers to the roots. We have seen the roots of the plants, how they are interconnected, like a web of like a web or a interconnected. They are not linear. They are connected by all sides, and each part is again interconnected. So this interconnection is something that remarks or that characterize the diaspora as well. We cannot actually call, or we cannot actually narrow the diasporic identity with a single word, and that is why I made use of different features of diaspora. We can call the diasporic identity as a hybrid identity, as a multicultural identity, multilinguistic identity, multiracial identity. Then in multi-generational differences. Then what else? So there are different things, or the even the migration becomes an intricate pattern, a complicated pattern, which force the theoreticians to attach the word rhizome to express this the process of migration. It becomes a very powerful metaphor for the diasporic movement, and this term is developed by Deleuze and Guattari. Rhizomic identity is, yes, it significantly characterizes the identity of a diasporic individual. They cross the boundaries, they cross their homelands, they cross the borders, centers, margins. Their lives themselves are beyond the marginalization, in the sense, of course they experience marginalization, but they transcend the so-called physical and geographical boundaries. And in that case, the rhizomic identities gain significant importance. Imane,
Yes, Iman? Is it okay? Okay.
welcome.
So another one. Shahnaz? Sarah? Yusra? Fatima?
Yes, doctor.
So no questions?
Doctor, can you
Yes.
hear me, please?
Yes, yes, Shahinaz.
Yes, thank you, doctor. Um, can we say that when speaking about gender, like society evaluation based on gender role, and from which can we speak about the third space of Bhabha, from which where it refers to this very how to say this very very tight, no, not very liminal space between colliding cultures, uh, like from where a new area of negotiation can emerge. Can we speak about the third space here, doctor?
Okay, you are talking about the gender within the
Yes,
the context of gender, and your question is
yes,
whether can we connect gender?
a hybrid and colliding diaspora cultures from which this third space could emerge.
Yes. So the question is very interesting. Yes, the hybrid space Again, for the women writers to transform, or the women writers to get a space in this hybrid space itself is very challenging, as I said before. Just like the limited women writers, the women diasporic writers gradually started to emerge, and once they started to get recognition, more and more women writers, they emerged in the scene of diasporic
Yeah.
realm, and they started to portray the women writers of our country. I'm talking about not the diasporic women writers, but the ordinary women writers. They need not have to portray the dilemma of the dislocated or the displaced identities. But when it
Yes.
comes to the diaspora, the women writers, they are becoming just like doubly, they are becoming they have double responsibilities, because they have to portray the lives of the women, which may be same even if in their native country or in the foreign country. There are certain common gender experiences being met out by the women in whichever land they reside. And more importantly, how do these women characters, how do they cope up with the diasporic dilemma? Is maybe these characters, some of them, they have moved to the foreign land through marriage, or some of them, they have moved to the foreign land to pursue higher education. And again, initially they may not find the difficulty in adjusting with the host culture, but gradually when they started to settle, is the again the notions of patriarchy, and the it may be one and the same all over the world, and they began to feel distanced, not only from their land, but also from the diasporic space as well. And it
Yeah.
is where we can see that some of the writers that whom I mentioned, especially Diane Brandt, with her work What We All Long For, she has wonderfully captured the beautiful moments of how these diasporic women as well as men from different communities, how they come together, and how do they write their diasporic longings in the form of an art installation project. If you have a chance to read the work, you must read the work. It's a
Yeah.
very wonderfully portrayal of the dilemma of the migrants. Each characters will come and write their longing, that in reality they know that these longings cannot be fulfilled, but still once they pose these longings, there is a possibility, or there is a hope evolving from within their mind, that there is one day their longing will come to materialize. So it is with this longing that different immigrants come to the place and write this post these longings, and they will make a return back. So actually these persons, these characters, the prominent characters, there are four main characters in the work. They are actually creating a communion, they are creating a collective bond among these other characters, and they are providing a space
Yeah.
where the women as well as the other people can come and ponder upon their depressed as well as the suppressed desires.
Yes. Thank you very much indeed, doctor.
Yes, any other question? So, Iman has been writing about Arab writers who live in diaspora. And of course, there are many Syrian, Palestinian writers who express notions like those of hybridity, the displacement, the third zone, identity crisis, mainly identity crisis, language, the problem of adoption and assimilation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, as my research area is scattered to this African and Asian diaspora, I have come up with some of the notable theoreticians as well as the writers limited to my framework. I know
Yeah.
that there are eminent writers from the Arab American and Arab British
Yeah.
writers, and whom I am equally, just like you, I am also equally interested to explore explore in the very near future. Um, Perhaps if time permits, and with the grace of the God, I think that I can expand my domain with these writings, because diaspora is constantly an enchanting topic for me. The more I read, the more I want to know about the cultural hybridity. The culture is something
Yeah,
that we cannot explain with
from
one
different
word.
cultures. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Rishmi. Any other questions before we officially close the seminar, ladies? So, since there are no questions, before we close, I would like to thank Dr. Rishmi for the efforts you have provided to enrich this scientific event. I would also like to thank you for your excellent thought-provoking talks. I believe that during these perhaps about 2 hours, all of us have obtained a fruitful understanding, an overview, and we have, in fact, enjoyed the journey and engaged in this hot debate. In fact, it is a set task to close this hot debate, because we should be closing the door on lively and stimulating debate. In fact, we are grateful for the time and efforts you have devoted, Dr. Rishmi, to share your thoughts and experiences with us, since you are specialized in diaspora studies. Looking forward to work together in other events. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Rishmi.
So for me as well, it is a very remarkable experience that all throughout my years of career, that as I told you earlier, that's the first time I am I'm addressing a group of persons from the other country, and I'm really honored to be the part of this program, to this wonderful academic session. And more interestingly, apart from my presentation and the nice words that you spoke about me and by the each of the participants, and I became equally delighted to answer the questions one after the another. I know that just like the presentations, only if the presentations become successful, only if the questions are posed on the equal basis. So with today's session, I am really happy, and I really enjoyed the question and answer session. I think that I could satisfy the participants who have asked questions in their ways of with my ways of knowledge. And it's once again, I thank Dr. Nadia for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I'm
Thank
also
you.
looking
Indeed,
forward
the pleasure is ours,
to
Dr. Rishmi.
yes, yes, yes.
So I think that the candidates are asking for your PowerPoint, to share your PowerPoint presentation with them.
Okay, I will share with you personally, and you can share with them later.
Thank you very much indeed, Rishmi. Thank you very much all, Iman, Fatima, Shahnaz, Yusra, and I think she left, Lina, and Sarah. Thank you very much all for joining the seminar and participating. Once again, we'd like to thank Dr. Rishmi for this insightful and valuable presentation, through which we have traveled through different concepts. Thank you very much indeed. Seeking for another occasion to work together, inshallah. Thank you very much. So, see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Dr. Ronan, can I talk to you for some extra
Yes,
minutes?
Fatima.
Yes, after. Yes, but after we just like wrap up this session.
Okay, I'm going to. Yes, so ladies, thank you very much indeed. See you
So,
in.
Dr. Nadia, I'm leaving the session. I'm
Yes,
leaving the session,
yes,
and
dear.
I once again I thank you very much,
Thank you very
because
much
it's a
indeed,
real
Rishmi.
honor for me.
I'm going to send you the record soon. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Along
I'm.
with
I
yes,
can call this today as one of the beautiful and wonderful moments of my life,
yes,
because
yes. So see
I
you
don't
in
know how.
other occasions. There are we are going to have some conferences. I'm going to invite you soon.
Oh, thank you. I'm really blessed that without even much proper acquaintance or friendship, you called a person like me without knowing my background. And these things are really quite surprising for me, Nadia. Thank
So
you
we
from
have
the
an
bottom of my
idea. Yes, we have an idea about each other. Thank you very much, Rishmi.
Thank
So
you.
see you
Thank
in
you.
another occasion.
Okay, sure.
Goodbye.
She's cute.
Yeah, so cute. I'm going to stop.